Right to Emancipate from Exploitation Act, the FREE Act. The piece of legislation would give every single person under guardianship the right to petition the court to have their guardian replaced with a public guardian. It would guarantee that every single person under guardianship is assigned a caseworker. It would require that both of these individuals, the caseworker and the guardian, be required to disclose their finances to make sure that there's no conflict of interest. And it would provide much needed transparency by requiring the states to disclose how many folks are under guardianship and other vital statistics to help us better regulate and monitor the system. I'm going to turn it over to Congressman Crist and Congresswoman Mace for a few more comments about the bill.
Well, first, I want to thank Nancy Mace very much. I appreciate your partnership in this, Nancy. And I think it's very important. And those of you involved in the Free Britney movement, God bless you for your efforts and your concern and your compassion for her and her situation. It has brought so much more light to what probably millions of people experience across the United States every day with a conservatorship or a guardianship. And I think the main point of this is just to give some balance, and so that the individual will have rights that are respected, that respect their dignity, and give them the opportunity to be freed from abuse and other difficult circumstances by being able to simply petition the court for that opportunity to have a guardianship or conservatorship that is under a public arena instead of in the private sector, so that you have more transparency, revealing of financial potential conflicts, just brings more goodness to the whole process, frankly. And I think that's really what it's all about. And the fact that we have a Democrat and a Republican doing this in concert in Congress today, pretty extraordinary. We don't see enough of that. And that's why I want to thank Nancy so much for her willingness to be a leader on this. I think it sends a powerful message to the country that, in fact, Republicans and Democrats can work together to try to do what's right. As I've said to her before, this is really not a right versus left issue. This is a right versus wrong issue. And far too many times these things go wrong. This bill, this legislation, will give the individual the opportunity to petition that court to make sure that right prevails. And with Nancy, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. And Charlie, I'll reiterate the same message. I want to thank you for your leadership in the bipartisan nature of this bill. This is not the first time that Charlie and I have worked together on legislation. We've done it multiple times now this year, and it's a rare sighting in Congress, especially when we are just so divided and our nation is divided. And this is one small way that we can make a big difference in bringing people together. And I'll tell you, my office has received calls from both progressives on the West Coast and conservatives on the East Coast about this issue, and they're all in agreement that this is something that they care about. It's an issue that many Americans care about, and this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. This is an American issue. This is a human rights issue. And I want to thank Britney Spears, too, for her courage when she had her hearing and got to the microphone and told her story. This is a woman who's been working almost every year that she's been in a conservatorship, and the abuses that she detailed within her conservatorship. And there have been abuses in these situations long before she ever topped the charts. But what she had an opportunity to do is bring to light, to shine a light on those abuses with everyday Americans. And her situation is a nightmare. And if it can happen to Britney Spears, it can happen to anyone in this country. There are approximately 1.3 million people in conservatorships. We know that on the onset, they're meant to do good and not do harm. But in some cases, like in her case and many others across the country, abuses do happen. The system is not perfect. And this is one small step in the right direction to work together and to do a better job for those individuals in conservatorships. And one of the stories that I heard when she was detailing the horrors of her conservatorship, and I'm a mom of 2 young kids. I'm a single mom, but the IUD they made her place inside her body, that's a human rights abuse. Those are things that we see going on in communist China. Those are not things we should be seeing here in the United States. And to allow individuals who are in abusive conservatorships, or what they believe to be abusive, to allow them the right, simply the right, to petition the court and petition a judge to have an individual who is in charge of their conservatorship, a public guardian, that has absolutely no conflict of interest, financial or otherwise, to give them that basic right, to give them that opportunity to improve their situation. And she's just one of countless others that are in the system and that are long forgotten. And we don't want to forget these individuals. They are humans. They have rights just like everybody else. And really, that's at the end of the day what this is all about. And I want to thank Congressman Crist for his leadership once again, and working together at a time when so few people really do. And it's just tremendous to be a part of this. And then for the individuals who are making statements today after us, I want to thank you too for your courage to come out publicly and tell your stories and your experiences to educate all of us on what's really truly going on in conservatorships in the United States. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Lisa McCarley, and I'm a licensed California conservatorship and probate attorney. And after years of observing needless trauma, exploitation, and abuse being inflicted on conservatees and their families by the local probate courts, I determined, like many others, to do whatever I could to end the systemic failures. To be honest, until recently, no politician was interested in helping us. It is clear that in 2008, Britney Jean Spears, a mama and beloved artist, was deprived of liberty and property without due process of law. It took the intuitive wisdom of Miss Spears' devoted fans throughout the world, the young people of the Free Britney movement, to bring the miscarriage of justice to light. Miss Spears' toxic conservatorship has lasted over 13 years. The FREE Act would provide each person under conservatorship with a caseworker, someone independent from the court system who is trained to detect the signs of abuse, such as isolation, and who can assist with changing the conservatorship. The FREE Act will reward states who establish policies to better track and monitor guardianships and conservatorships. The bipartisan support for reform, correction, and change should give us hope that we can do better for our most vulnerable citizens, especially those that are legally and economically disenfranchised, who are placed under conservatorship. Congressman Crist and Congresswoman Mace, it is my honor to thank you for listening to the victims and the advocates for reform and paving the way towards fixing America's broken legal system. I hope that this new bill represents a beginning towards an in-depth conversation about what is going on and how to fix it. For that, you deserve our support and our gratitude. Thank you on behalf of the Free Britney movement supporters, and please let this be a beginning. I wish you well. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Cassandra Dumas, and it is my honor and privilege to speak on behalf of Free Britney America, a Washington, D.C. grassroots-based group focused on legislative action to assure federal oversight in the probate court system over guardians and conservatees. Today will be the first beacon of hope, of meaningful hope to suffering from abusive conservatorships. It demonstrates that the federal government will act to prevent the financial and civil rights abuses that have relegated as states' problems. This bipartisan effort is a work in progress that demonstrates a necessary legal reform to fix the civil death that conservatees have been maligned to. For Britney Spears and others, the conservatorship system is an instrument of control and abuse. Until today, there has been no major reform to the conservatorship system and no federal oversight. The system has perpetuated not just by familial greed against families, but a highly organized business where misuse power and authority denigrates the people it's supposed to help. Without federal action, the system deprecates and endangers our democratic processes and constitutional rights. My team and I are hopeful that the federal government, through this proposed legislation, will give conservatees their voice back, that they will be using their legislative power as the preeminent law of the land to make life-changing policies that will affect millions of Americans today and in the future. The work of Congressman Crist and Congresswoman Mace on this bill will look to re-examine and prevent the gross misjustices relegated to disadvantaged people in a legal loophole. By ensuring conservatees are covered under the 14th Amendment in their due process rights, the federal government will have better data and statistics around the number of people in conservatorships, the length of time, and last, but certainly not least important, the total of assets. We hope this provides accountability and protection against abuses. We hope that by having oversight and a rigorous process from the beginning, that conservatorships will only be used in a last case scenario. We recognize there's still work to be done, but this is a good first foray to start addressing a system that has always been in need of serious reform. I want to thank Congressman Crist and Congresswoman Mace so much for the honor and privilege for my team and I to be here today. You were compelled to take action and create a bill where many other senators and representatives have only voiced support. The Free Britney movement and conservatorship reform advocacy groups, thank you for hearing our battle cry and answering the call. We look forward to working with you on this bipartisan bill and are hopeful for reform and oversight that should bring justice.
My name is Rick Black. I'm the director of CEAR, the Center for State Administration Reform. We're a 501c3 and advocate for seniors and intellectually impaired adults targeted by the predatory legal community in POA, trust, and adult guardianship conservatorship frauds. We've counseled and researched nearly 4,000 cases since we started our work in 2014. America's adult guardianship system is broken. AARP reported the estimates that Congresswoman Mace reported earlier because the states have been unwilling to produce those numbers and be transparent about the number of adults that they placed into conservatorships or guardianships or their trends. Who oversees county equity courts, judges, and ensures statutory compliance? Our inalienable rights are too often disposed of by these courts as they transfer billions of dollars in familial wealth to third parties. Untrained jurists, single copy paper records, sealed records, closed proceedings, no notice, and no financial or performance audits are commonplace. The judiciary in our nation's equity court system have demonstrated little interest in adopting best practices or stopping known abuses by those they empower. The FREE Act, thanks to Congressman Crist and Congresswoman Mace, will demand increased accountability by county courts to a census, remove some of the financial incentives that have driven the growth of fraudulent guardianships, and give victims a redress option in federal courts that has never existed. America and the world was awakened by Britney Spears' shocking testimony on June 23rd. Her testimony contradicted the long-standing claims of the many attorneys who benefited financially from her isolation and exploitation. How can a lucid, successful, and devoted mother be conscripted into a 13-year, unnecessary, and expensive conservatorship? If it can happen to Britney Spears, it can happen to anyone. And I can attest it does thousands of times each year across America. Too many judges choose to entertain fellow members of the bar instead of protecting the vulnerable, their loved ones, their estate documents, their estates, and the state and federal laws that protect vulnerable adults in our great country. Whether a vibrant celebrity, a dementia-impaired octogenarian, or the 18-year-old cerebral palsy victim lovingly cared for by a parent, our judicial system must ensure their protection and their rights. Silencing victims and rewarding predatory attorneys and guardians should never be tolerated in this process, much less rewarded. We are asking for Congress's support on the FREE Act. We thank so very much Congressman Crist and Congresswoman Mace for your support. And we ask to ensure all Americans are protected in these proceedings as the U.S. Constitution dictates, and ensure our most vulnerable adults can enjoy their estates, life, liberty, and their pursuit of happiness. Thank you.
All right. Well, my name is Chloe Keswick. I'm press secretary for Congressman Crist, and now that all of our panelists have had a chance to share, I'm going to go and read out some questions from our chat. So first question that I'm seeing is from Meg Kennard with AP, and she would like to ask, she'd like to hear from members on legislative buy-in on this measure and their forecast for its chances. Do you feel support from other members? Are more signing on? So whoever wants to go ahead and answer that one.
Charlie, you want to go first?
Sure, I'm happy to. Yeah, I'm sure we're going to get that. And I think, the fact that Nancy and I are working together on this on a bipartisan basis as the co-chairs of this legislation is a great indicator of what's to come. And the more people hear about it, not only through this press conference, but we had an earlier appearance on MSNBC Morning Joe, the awareness then starts to grow. And then people start to buy in and understand that this is just a common sense approach to doing what is right, to making sure that rights are balanced between not just the conservatorship or guardianship, but also the individual who is subjected to that conservatorship or guardianship. And I think it's just such a straightforward and fairly narrowly drafted piece of legislation. Sometimes if you try to put too many things in one bill, you give people reasons to not support it. We've tried to narrowly craft this in a way that gives the most opportunity to take this great first step to do what's right, to restore dignity to millions of people across our country.
And I agree with Charlie. This is not the first time we've worked together. This is the first day that we are filing this legislation and bringing awareness to this bill. And I've heard from Republicans and Democrats as I've been talking to people about this issue. And if what I have seen publicly when I'm talking to individuals, whether they're Republican or Democrat, I do believe we're going to get strong bipartisan support on this legislation as members become aware of it. And one of the reasons that it was drafted with it being with a narrower focus is so that we could bring Republicans and Democrats together. I am not a fan of filing legislation because it looks good or sounds good. I actually want to make a difference. And sometimes when you craft bills that are everything but the kitchen sink thrown into it, you have a much more difficult time bringing both sides together. But the way that this was crafted, as Charlie mentioned earlier, it's common sense, it's pragmatic, it's logical, it's thought out, and it's narrow enough that I truly believe we will get Republicans and Democrats on board so that it has the greatest chance of success. Otherwise, I wouldn't worked on it with them anyway, because I really want us to be able to work together. And this is one place where we can, and small parts do make a big difference. And this is one of those pieces of legislation that I believe will truly deliver.
All right, excellent. We have another question from Hillary Hogue with Justice for All Florida. She says, Claude Pepper said a convicted prisoner has more rights than a person in guardianship. What would you say to wards of the state of Florida who are begging for their freedom?
Well, here's your opportunity. We are on the precipice now of doing something nationwide that will give you the authority, the power, and the opportunity for your freedom and a chance for you to have your rights respected, to be able to petition a court of your own volition and have that chance honored. And so this is that day. This is the beginning, and we hope for great things going forward.
Right, I agree. This is the opportunity to do that. We've seen prison reform done a couple of years ago at the federal level, the First Step Act. I'm not as familiar with what's going on in Florida. However, this is a great first step nationwide to make an improvement on a very dire situation in conservatorships and the abuses therein.
All right, excellent. Well, we got a question from Adam Walser at ABC Action News. He says that Congressman Crist had proposed legislation a time back which wasn't able to move forward because of mostly due to COVID and the election. How does the recent Britney Spears case and the action in that case help move this bill forward?
Well, I think the timing is a big factor, Adam, as you stated in your question itself. Hopefully we're getting more beyond COVID, although we have an unfortunate and sad spike in Florida right now. But in terms of more attention being able to be paid to what's happening here, I think we have a wider bandwidth, if you will, for that opportunity. And so I'm very optimistic about it.
And Britney Spears' testimony in June provided a spotlight, an opportunity to talk about this and educate the public, and having activists that are knowledgeable, having people across the country knowledgeable, that encouragement to members of Congress to get on board and to help move this through the legislative process. That's a really time-wise is a good opportunity to educate members of Congress and the public and their involvement in this. This is a big issue. A lot of people care about it, Republican and Democrat.
Excellent. We have a question from Vita. This is more of a legislative question. Would you consider adding to the bill that a mediator to help families in the case of probate court? So if anyone can speak to that and maybe the role of the independent caseworker in this bill.
Well, Nancy and I were talking with the New York Times yesterday briefly on the bill, and one of the questions that came up was very similar to this. So this is the first start. This is the first step. Will there be opportunities to modify, improve, enhance this legislation as it moves forward? You start to get testimony from individuals with different circumstances that may need to be addressed. I think that's exactly what this is. This can be amended. This can be modified. This can be changed for mediation and other purposes as we go forward. But I think this first step, we want to kind of, as Nancy and I both have said, try to keep it narrow so we have the opportunity to actually get this first piece passed. But want to be mindful. My dad's a family doctor for 55 years in St. Pete, and he used to always tell my three sisters and me, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's important to respect God's ratio. Listen twice as much as you talk. And so, yeah, of course, we're going to be listening and compassionate and sympathetic to new ideas that might improve.
Right. Through the legislative process, when this gets through the committee process, the opportunity to amend the legislation during testimony, that opportunity will be there. I do hope that it remains somewhat narrow in focus so that we can actually pass it and get it to the Senate and become law. And so that will be my only concern, is making it too broad through that process. Then it'll die somewhere because one side or the other won't like portions of it. So, but the opportunity will be there to improve it and make it better. And that's what the legislative process, the committee process is all about, when we heard testimony and have other members provide their input via amendment.
We have a question from Matthew Scarlatos. Through this bill, will the victims of guardianship abuse be able to see any sort of criminal charges against folks involved in the system who might have been abusive towards them, such as attorneys?
Not a part of this legislation, correct, Charlie?
Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
Right.
Let me see. I think we have a few more questions. We've got about a minute, so let me just throw one out there. They didn't include a name, but they've said that we've been asking for some time for a congressional hearing. Is that something that is possible or on the agenda?
Well, it's certainly possible. Anytime you have a piece of legislation that's going through the Congress, you have an opportunity for then it to be determined by leadership what committees it'll be assigned to, and each of those committees can make the decision about having a hearing in an open forum, such as what Britney had the opportunity to do last month, and really bring even more attention to this very important issue and topic.
What Charlie said.
All right, I'm just checking one more time. I know we've got a couple of folks who've shared their stories. One last question we've got from Allie. How quickly can we get our loved ones out of lockdown, or folks who've been stuck in nursing home facilities due to these sorts of abusive guardianships? I guess more of the question is, what is the timeline for this bill?
Well, we hope it's swift. I mean, as Nancy indicated herself, keeping it narrowly crafted and focused, laser focused, if you will. so that you give that opportunity to have the petition put forward, to give individuals around the country the opportunity to be free of an abusive type of guardianship or conservatorship. This can move relatively quickly, so long as leadership gets the impetus going and we get it assigned to different committees for hearings.
Right. So long as leadership is and approves of it and it stays and remains narrow and focused, and it can swiftly get through the legislative process. And that's why it was crafted in this way, so we could be swift about it with the opportunity.
Great. Well, so our time has come to a conclusion. Thank you all of our panelists, all of our participants. Thank you everyone so much. As I mentioned at the top of the call, I'm Virginia Poe. I'm a legislative staffer with Congressman Crist. If you have any further questions about the bill, you can direct them to me, virginia.poe, P-O-E, @mail.house.gov. Thank you guys so much, and really appreciate your participation.
Thank you, Virginia.